Hello, friends. We know that the Canadian Indo relations are at an all time low. It is just because of the foolhardiness of Trudeau. He has tried to implicate India and also pointed a finger at our Prime Minister that he knew that Niger's murder was or assassination was going to take place. But then he said that he doesn't have proof. But why such a statement? Basically, he is doing cheap politics, trying to loop in US, the Five Eyes. And all this is because he is losing sheen in Canada, in his own country, where he is calling these separatists, not knowing that he is giving shelter to Frankensteins, which are going to eat up his nation, his land. And the big image of Trudeau in Canadian politics is dying away. His glamour is just fading away. And if an election was to be held today, his seat would not reach the majority. And as we know, the political landscape in Canada is increasingly fraught as Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is facing mounting criticisms and his support is declining. And this is supposedly a situation which is called the Trudeau trap. So his once glowing reputation is losing its luster, and many believe his political reign is nearing its tumultuous end. His Liberal Party is seeing a rapid decline in popularity, and the frustration is growing as his policies, including immigration, housing, and climate measures, fall short of public expectations. His party has been in power for nearly a decade, but Trudeau now faces an internal dissent, with some calling his resignation as Canada nears a national election which is supposed to be held within a year. So his moral posturing in climate change and social issues, once an asset, now appears disconnected from the daily struggles of Canadians. This has created a political vacuum which needs corrections, which Trudeau is not thinking because he has got focused ideas. This has created the vacuum that I was talking about, and this, the opposition leader Pierre Poilievre has capitalized on, promising to scrape the carbon tax and offer practical solutions. So let us see what happens. And as per the reports in Economists, Trudeau's election in 2015 had marked the modern dawn, which was multicultural, climate conscious Canada, providing a stark contrast to the political turbulence seen in the other parts of the world. There was stability in Canada and the economic growth was growing up. But then Trudeau's leadership, particularly in the face of a truculent Donald Trump in his first tenure, seemed to beacon a light of morality and stability. His government swiftly enacted welfare reforms, legalized marijuana, and welcomed refugees fleeing from the Syrian civil war. His leadership shone brightest in international affairs, where he successfully renegotiated the North American Free Trade Agreement, the NAFTA, with the US and the Mexico, maintaining critical economic ties. His administration also expanded social programs, including generous child care payments that helped lift hundreds of thousands of children out of poverty. But then his virtuous image and sweeping reforms have over time been overshadowed by practical failings on issues like immigration, housing, and the sagging economy. Despite his efforts to make Canada more inclusive and progressive, the government's inability to keep up with its growing population, along with rising living cost, has alienated large portions of the electorate. And as Trudeau's reign comes to an end these reformations which he had done, and his present policies have de-alienated and divided the Canadian populace. Now, his administration's response to protests and public outcries have often been seen as brand descenders and bigots of extremists rather than engaging with the substantive issues at hand. This was starkly illustrated during the 2022 trucker protest, where Trudeau invoked emergency powers rarely used in peacetime to quash what he saw an existence threat to his government rather than a legitimate expression of public frustration. So, this illiberal streak has also surfaced in his treatment of critics within his party among the public, and without thinking, he quashes them, has them arrested, has emergency powers put into force, which the common public is not taking it in good spirit. And the soaring house costs, rising debt, and the wage stagnation has also been point of criticism by his detractors, and this is coming in because he is feeling inferior as of today. Even as support for his policies have crumbled, Trudeau's focus remains on defending his government's virtues, framing opposition as driven by misinformation or prejudice rather than the legitimate concerns. His reluctance to accept that his policies are failing, he is not able to push up the economy, and then also he is fighting for minority votes, is not being seen in good perspective by the citizens, and also Trudeau is not ready to accept these as his defeat or back points. So, Canada's global influence has already waned under Trudeau, and further tarnishing his leadership image, his government failed to secure a seat in the UN Security Council in 2020, finishing behind Norway and Ireland. Meanwhile, Canada's defense spending remains well below NATO's 2% GDP target, standing at just 1.3%. This has drawn criticism from NATO allies and exacerbated concerns about Canada's ability to contribute meaningfully to international security, terrorism, keeping in view the global tensions which are around. Then are the relation with the key global powers which have already soared. Tensions with China and India, as we know, have escalated, most recently over the alleged involvement of Indian diplomats into the killing of 6 separatist leaders, like I said in the beginning. So Trudeau is losing face, and with the national elections on the horizon, he faces mounting pressures from within his party and from outside, and there are Liberal MPs who are calling for his resignation, and there are letters circulating to that effect. And his opposition polygraph is after his blood. So Trudeau right now is in a very tight spot, and he is trying to get out of it. Keep watching my channel to see how Trudeau gets out of his own trap, and can he do something for Canada, or he loses his premiership in the next elections. But before I finish, I would like you all to please become a volunteer to our NGO, which our trust has promulgated, called the UMA Dream Foundation. The link to our website is given below in the description. So donate for a good cause and help our artisans. And otherwise, I am free of cost for teaching you life skills also. Jai Hind.